Well, hello everybody and good evening. It's a full moon tonight and I didn't even know until I just looked out the window. How perfect to have a call. So I just want everyone to know that our calls will still be on Sundays. So we're just doing this special because I wasn't able to do it this Sunday. So we have tonight, and then we'll also see everybody again on Sunday at our normal time, 2 p.m. East Coast time. All right, so we're going to tune into limiting beliefs tonight, and I'm going to be bringing in Raphael. And I've been getting a lot of emails and questions about our Starseed class that's coming up on April 4th. Or actually, I think it begins April 3rd. And so I want to answer some questions about that because people are like, well, how do I know I'm a Starseed? And what is tapping into the ancient civilizations actually going to do for me? Couple things. So star seeds are basically if you feel that you were born to be here during this time where the planet's going through this transformation and you know that it's your calling as a healer or someone to support the planet. So the work we're going to be doing in the Starseed class, not only is it going to really support you in tapping into much higher vibrations and frequencies and synchronicities, but it's going to be a lot of beautiful work about supporting Mother Earth and the collective consciousness so we can shift into the new Earth. So I have traveled all over the world and tuned in because Raphael has asked me to go to very magical places, and I've had incredibly magical experiences. And as I have gone and done that, I tapped into the Lemurian vibrations, which are so sweet and gentle, but they can really bring you to a whole nother level in terms of, I guess I would call it synchronicity and magic. And I don't even know how to begin to explain it, but when I'm working with their vibration, and we're going to work doing ceremony and working with what's called the Ascension Accelerator Chair and really raising our vibration and transmuting old energies, you feel something completely different. You really move into working and living more and more in the fifth dimension. They're some of my favorite vibrations to tap into, the Lemurians. And then the Atlanteans vibration is a little different. It's a little edgier. And, you know, they were on the cusp of really moving into a new place in terms of consciousness. And what happened was that fear and separation and greed and power unfortunately got in the way. And they have so many lessons to teach us, because if we can tune into the tools that they were already working with and their ability to use energy to master their energetic field, to connect on so many different levels, and then learn from the lessons of not allowing our ego and power to get in the way, which gets in the way for all of us, whether we think we have an ego or not. If we're living in the 3D at any point in our reality, we're still tuned into our ego and learning where, when it's not appropriate, and beginning to have more understanding around that. And then the ancient Egyptian energy is so fun because we can work with the goddesses and the gods and move into the temples and tune into so many beautiful vibrations. So that class starts April 3rd. I'm super excited about it. We're going to launch it on Instagram next week. So we're still going to share it with people on these calls first. And so just wanted to give you more information. I'll continue to do that every week to update you on that. All right, so today I'm going to channel and bring in the angel Raphael. And if you're new to this call and you've never heard me channel before, I have been channeling since 1989. It was a spontaneous awakening that just happened to me during the harmonic convergence. It also happened to my sister and I at the same time. And gosh, so much magic and so many blessings have come from being able to tap into Raphael's vibration. Being in Raphael's vibration, whether it's on this call or you're really delving deep into class work in the mystery schools, like in the Starseed class with me, just being in the vibration alone is enough to make an impact on your life. And people who've been doing this work with me for years and years and years, sometimes it's subtle at first, but all of a sudden you just take this leap in consciousness and you're like, oh my gosh, if I look back at where I was when I started the work to where I am now, you can really feel a big change, and you can see it in your life, your relationships, your abundance level. I know for me, you know, we're going to talk about limiting beliefs tonight, and I had some limiting beliefs myself around abundance to some extent. And that's completely shifted from doing what I call the spiral work. I really delved deep into my spiral work. That's our Spiral Destiny class. And by doing that, I just opened up to unlimited, complete financial wealth and had no more limiting beliefs around it. And it's just so much fun. You know, it can be a lot of fun to be in abundance. And there's no need to be in lack and poverty consciousness. That is really an old paradigm that we can all let go of. So if you're still holding on to that limiting belief, let's tune into that tonight and kind of pull that up by the root and let that go, because there is enough for everybody. I know that one of the big limiting beliefs that people have is there's not enough, but there is enough. Mother Earth is abundant and full, and there's enough for all of us. So we'll tune into that, and I guess that's about it. So the process is I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to get centered, drop into Mother Earth, tie a cord to her, open up my heart, surrender, tap into Raphael's vibration. Raphael will come in. When Raphael comes in, Raphael says, hello, like that, and then you'll say hello back. We won't hear you because we're on Zoom, but try to say hello back, because that's her tapping into your vibration. Being on these calls and doing these workshops with me and with Raphael and with Casey is just very healing. You want to feel Raphael and tune into her vibration so that you're matching it to accelerate your own. And then after Raphael says hello, then we'll get into some dialogue and see what comes up. All right? Everybody ready to go? Let me make sure everything's good. All right, here we are. And then we can open it up if you want tonight afterwards for a few minutes and see what's going on with peeps. All right. Hello. Oh, it is so wonderful to be here, and it is not a surprise to us. It was a surprise to Kelly that it is a full moon. And we are delighted to be here when the energy is so expanded and so beautiful, and many of you may feel a bit of a settling in the vibration as you are going through such peaks in the waves of what we were calling tsunamis that have begun to settle down a bit, allowing you to take a reprieve in the vibration of this accelerated movement that is taking place on the planet to move and to birth you into a new consciousness. And just like when there is any change, it comes in waves, and it peaks and it comes up and then it comes down and it settles for a bit until another wave comes. And you may experience that with your emotions and with your energy and so on as you are are moving at a very rapid pace through an accelerated process of accentuating and raising your vibration and having greater awareness of who it is that you are beyond the perspective of the third dimension. And so we are very delighted to be here with all of you from the angelic realm. And it is our understanding that you are wanting to talk about limiting beliefs. And so we will do that. But before we are doing that, we want you to all just take a nice deep breath. And as you take that nice deep breath, we're just wanting you to tune in and to be very present in the here and in the now of where it is that you are. So if you are listening to this and at the same time you're looking at something else on your computer, or you're talking to somebody else, or you're typing something, we're wanting you to stop because it is very important to be present, because it is in the presence of the now, wherever it is that you are in any given moment, begins to open up space to allow you to have a greater connection and intuitive knowing and understanding of your energetic field, your auric field, and begin to move your senses beyond the idea of the confined feeling of the third D. And so there are very, 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 very many distractions that we are witnessing in the human collective as we watch all of you. And because of this, it is that it is in juxtaposition, which is quite interesting, to such an acceleration in your consciousness, in your vibration. And so if we can begin to dissolve and eliminate some of the distraction and bring you back into the presence of the now, and align that with the accelerated vibration and the consciousness that is clearly occurring, you'll be able to take a great leap in your frequency. And as you take that leap in your frequency, it is that there will be a very distinct automatic dissolving of many limiting beliefs in which you're wanting to talk about. So one of the things that supports you, which is quite simple, and even dissolving a limiting belief, is being present. For it is limiting beliefs that were born in many respects out of distraction itself, distraction from connecting to who it is that you are. For when you are connected completely and fully to what you might call your higher self, or source itself, or God, or whatever word you are wanting to use, universal law, whatever it may be, when you're connected to that place of omnipresence of everything, based in complete love, then there are no limiting beliefs, because you're in an expanded vibration. Limiting beliefs come from a contracted energy, and the contraction comes from a separation from self, and the separation from self comes from being born through the identity that you must have control or protect or take care of something, and where fear is born, and that comes from ego, thinking that you are the one operating and controlling all aspects of what's taking place. And so it is that all limiting beliefs are born out of some thought of protection, or out of a thought of scarcity, or out of a thought of less than, unworthiness, or not enough. Because it is that when you are fully, completely connected to source, fully and absolutely from the presence of who it is that you are, without the mind getting in the way, a limiting belief cannot survive. It has nowhere to grow, it has nowhere to put its roots, and it cannot flourish. It only shrivels up and it begins to die, because it has nothing to hook itself into. A limiting belief can only live if it can hook itself into the frequency or the vibration of something born from ego, or separation, or lack, or unworthiness, or not enough. And so identifying what that might be, where it came from, and then looking at it as something that was placed there to protect you, that you put in place, or the collective consciousness put in place to create a barrier between you and source, to keep you safe, because there was an idea in the mind that somehow you were not. Then it is when you identify with it and you know it, you can begin to release it by loving it. So let's talk about some of the common ones because we think it's quite funny, and there's we don't mean to make fun because we know that it can be very debilitating, but we want you to know that any limiting belief that you have is most likely very commonplace, and it is rippling through the collective consciousness, and that in pulling that up from the root and taking the time to look at it, to identify and to release it, you're doing it not only for yourself, but the collective as a whole. And not only are you releasing it for yourself, but for those that are born that come in generations ahead. Many limiting beliefs come from your ancestors, or they come from others. It could be even a teacher or an institution or the collective consciousness telling you something in which came into your system when your guards, in a sense, were down in a place of vulnerability, often when you were feeling a sense of unworthiness and you were holding a vibration that was already based in not enough or lack. And when that happened, you made a choice, most likely unconscious, to put up an idea or a thought form to keep you safe. And when you put that idea or that thought form up to put you safe, it's like creating a wall or a barrier. And that begins to create a programming that moves into the cells of your being and into your DNA. And it's like an operating system in which it is a filter that you see the world through. And what happens is it starts to become so many different filters over time that are built up that if you were creating your experience, or you are creating your experience, and we're going to give you an example from the infinite space of nothingness. And I want to just talk to you for just a moment about that, because that's where everything that you're experiencing comes from, where it is born. It is the place in which you came from, and it is the place that you will go to when you leave your body, and it is the source of energy of creation itself, and it is expansive, and it is infinite, and it is magnificent, and it is beautiful, and it is open. And if you want to think of it as this open, beautiful, expansive space, when you begin to have a limiting belief that comes in, it starts to close the space a little bit. And then when you have another limiting belief, it closes it a little more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, until there's some people on your planet that are looking through the lens of their life like through a pinhole. And when you're looking through the lens of life through a pinhole, there are the possibilities have gotten so narrow, then it doesn't allow you to begin to express and to expand and to see beyond that little spot that you're looking through. And so you have narrowed your possibilities in creation. And then you continue to reinforce that by saying, you see, I'm wanting to manifest, or I'm wanting to create, or I want to have a relationship, or I want to have abundance, or I want to have more health, and I can't, or it doesn't work, or I don't have enough, or I'm in lack, or I have to struggle, or it's very hard to make things happen, and I can't get well, and I'm always sick, and I'm never going to get better, and it's just a horrible thing, and all of those things, right, over and over. And what that keeps doing is when you keep reinforcing that, it keeps narrowing that expansive space until it becomes so small that the way in which you can bring forth creation into your experience, you have such a little window to pull it in, because you're always attracting and bringing to you whatever frequency you're vibrating at, where your intention and your thought and your ideas mixed with your emotion are thrown into the vortex of that magnificent space with the intent to bring it forward, begins to vibrate in your field. But what happens is, if the limiting beliefs are overlaying so much and have created such a barrier or a wall, that the pinhole is so thin that when you go in to pull in creation and to bring it toward you, you can barely even get through the barriers to get to the empty space of the nothingness where creation begins to pull in to begin with. And then you continue to reinforce that it's not working. And the more you reinforce that it's not working, then the more the pinhole gets tinier and tinier, until sometimes for some it's so completely closed that there is no possibility for creating at all. So creation itself cannot take place, nor can you bring anything you're desiring or wanting into your experience when it is blocked by a belief or an idea that it cannot be, that is contracted. So limiting beliefs are contracted energy. They look like this. And creation energy looks like this. It's in surrendering. And you might think, well, surrendering cannot be creating. Creating must be when you are bringing it to you. Yes, you can bring it to you, but then you have to absolutely open up and expand into the surrendering. So you have to be willing to dissolve the identity completely of who it is that you think you are, all the belief systems that you have, down to until you are no longer vibrating with being held even in the body itself, until you've expanded completely and merged with the space of what you might call where things are unknown, where there is nothing. And it is that when you are in the place of the unknown and you move into the vibration of the unknown, where there isn't anything, that is where everything that you could potentially consider to conceive of to bring into your experience dwells. And from there, you can tap into the infinite possibilities of anything. That's where miracles are born, and perfect health is born, and unlimited abundance is born, and deep connection, and intimacy, and relationships, and playfulness, and joy, and bliss, and all of those things. And they can be concrete as well, because you can begin to bring all the molecular structure together to vibrate into a frequency that projects itself into your experience, because you are merging with it, with the consciousness of intent. For it is your consciousness that is powerful. It is not the matter in which it is just molding into what your consciousness is projecting it to be. Form and matter itself is just the end result. It just equals that. It's just what's mirroring back to you what your consciousness has told it to do. It knows nothing, and it doesn't really care what you tell it to do. It doesn't really have an opinion. It just mirrors what you tell it. And you tell it whatever you want it to do by where your belief systems and your way of being is, and where you're looking toward and placing your attention toward. So what about these unconscious limiting beliefs that are being held? How do you find them? Are they hidden somewhere in a drawer? Where do you find them? How do you get them out? How do you look at them? You have to look at what it is that you want to delve into to create, and then you must ask yourself, if I want to create that, why is it that I cannot? And if you cannot tune into the reason of why you cannot, then use the word because. The word because is powerful. So it might be something like, I cannot ever have enough money because why? Because I can't do what I love to do and make money. That's a very common limiting belief, that you can't do what you love and make money. They don't go together. Why not? Who said they didn't? Where is that limiting belief coming from? Where was it born? It's often born in your lineage that came from an ancestor. And then you have to identify it, and who birthed it, and why did they bring it into their experience. Any limiting belief that comes into reality is born out of a state of wanting to protect or to keep one safe from the fact that they may not be able to do something or have an experience that they are wanting. So utilizing the word because is very helpful. So let's take an example. What could be one be? Let's say, we know that this one, Kelly, had been very ill for a long time, and so she couldn't get better. Why? Because if she got better, then she wouldn't have an excuse to rest and take care of herself. That's a limiting belief. If I get better, right, then she didn't realize that, but then she can't take care of herself. The limiting belief is I am not worthy just as I am, for who I am, enough to take care of myself unless I have an excuse. So that's a deep held limiting belief that then presents itself as a chronic illness. Now, chronic illness can have many different layers of limiting belief. That's just one example. But once you tune into the thing in which you're experiencing that you're not wanting to experience, you must go into the vibration of, well, because why? Taking away your ego and your identity to it and not getting attached to the idea that you have the limiting belief and that there's something wrong about it, but realizing that that was put in place. So in that example with Kelly, perhaps she doesn't like talking about it to everyone on this call, but we're going to do it anyway. It is that I can't take care of myself and give myself permission to take care of my body unless I'm sick, because I'm not worthy to do that. And so somewhere that underneath that is I am unworthy. And where did the unworthiness come from? Probably not doing well at school, or missing something on a test, or being bad at gym, right? Or unathletic, or being the kid not picked in the group for the basketball team, or whatever it may be. The unworthiness, or a message from mom or dad that you're not good at something. And so then you're like, well, I'm not worthy. And so that's where the root comes in. And then the unworthiness says, well, if I'm unworthy, then I don't have the right to get a massage, or take care of myself, or rest, or drink lots of water, or eat the right food, or whatever I have to do, because I'm not worthy to do that. I have to take care of everyone else. And so you have to go back into the reasoning, or the because. So that ultimately underneath almost all limiting beliefs, whatever one it is, often at the root is a sense of unworthiness. And an unworthiness is a collective belief that you are less than what you were created from. And that's quite fascinating, because really you are source itself, just encased in a physical body. And it is only out of the birth of separation and the idea that then you are less than source, that also came in from indoctrination by many religions, thought forms, and ideas to keep you separated from divine, that you are less than something other than what you are, which is everything. I love that. You are less than something in which you are, which is everything, because you are actually everything. So it is the reconnecting to source and the dissolving of the identity of who you think you are that allows you to drop into the expansive space of creation, to merge with it and to bring forth into creation the vibration or the frequency in which you're wanting to align or to match with, for it to become in your third dimensional experience. So when you finally identify what the limiting belief is, by going through the exercise of going backwards for where it originated from, then we want you not to just to say, go away, limiting belief, I don't want you here. We want you to honor it, to recognize it, and to say, thank you. I know that you were put in place so that I could take care of myself. I put in place the limiting belief that in order to take care of myself, I have to be sick. Oh, well, that was very smart. You figured out how to take care of yourself by having this limiting belief, which created a sickness which you actually didn't want, but you thought you were doing a good thing. So we'll say thank you anyway. Thank you for putting that in place, because you put it there to protect me, and bring gratitude to it. And then bring forgiveness to it. I forgive you for placing that there and making me sick, because I know that you didn't recognize that the sickness would be a greater belief or greater hardship on me than the limiting belief around not taking care of myself. And so we want you to bring forgiveness to it. And then we want you to tune in to perhaps where it is it came from. Now, often it comes from your ancestral lineage. It can come from your mother or your father. Sometimes it comes from something other than that, but usually that. And then you tune in. Is that a vibrational pattern that I recognize the frequency of in a parent? Well, in this particular situation, it was Kelly's mother. She couldn't take care of herself unless she was sick. And so she got that belief system there. It was passed down. So then you have to return it and give it back in a willingness to that vibration and return it so it can go back to source where it originated from. So it is that there are a few processes in releasing the limiting belief. First, you must identify what it is, perhaps where it is that you came from, and giving it attention and giving it love and honoring it, and then forgiving it, not beating yourself over the back that you have it. But it is that's even more contracted energy, that it just amplifies the vibration, but it is in the forgiveness and the honoring and the respecting and the loving of it, it begins to allow itself to step aside because it feels safe enough to do so. And then that's just like taking one of those filters in that space of infinite possibilities that you have up and around that have brought you down into this narrow pinhole, and it's kind of opening up the hole. And the more limiting beliefs you keep dissolving, the wider and the wider and the wider your lens becomes. And the wider your lens becomes, it becomes so wide that eventually everything that's holding it, the energy around it that holds it into place, just itself collapses until it's not contained anymore in anything. And you're literally sitting in or floating or being in or merging with the infinite energy of creation. And then from the infinite energy of creation itself, you can choose, just like you would order something on a menu, you can just choose to connect with any particular vibration, placing your intent to it and merging with it until, look at that, it is in my experience. I am experiencing that now as I am still contained in the vessel of a body in the third dimension, but I am vibrating with the frequency that I intended to vibrate with, that exists in the infinite, because I have nothing in between me and that space that is holding me from merging with it. There's nothing there in between, and so it just becomes your experience. And the way to accelerate it is to keep moving away the filtering systems like this and collapsing it. And as you continue to collapse them, then you're just sitting there. And when you're just sitting there in that, then there is nothing, absolutely nothing in which you cannot merge with, which you cannot align with, which you cannot enjoy and be connected to. Because there is not one belief that is telling you the contracting something other than what is. For limiting beliefs are contracting energy, and infinite possibilities are expanding energy. So when your body gets contracted, when you get stressed, when you're filled with anxiety, when you're in fear, you're contracting. And the more you're contracting, the more you're identifying with those beliefs. And the more solidified they become, the more they become like a hard doorway between you and the infinite. And so that is why it is so important to meditate. It's why it's so important to be in the presence of the now, because in meditation, you start to settle down the nervous system. You begin to allow the brain to relax, right? The mind starts to fall away. You move into the coherent vibration of the heart. You start to align with the frequency that is of a higher vibration, and you begin to expand, just like when you're meditating and sometimes your body feels like it's turning to a side, or you really cannot feel the definition of the body anymore. You're starting to merge with that energy. Well, that keeps teaching your whole being that that's the place where creation comes. That's where you merge with. That's where the spot place you want to be. And that's why it's so vitally important to meditate, to be in stillness, to be in walking meditation, to be in prayer and contemplation, to be in stillness, to be in the presence, to utilize your breath, or to do movement, and where the mind is simply engaged in the stillness, or perhaps it's like standing in meditation, or washing your hands in meditation. All of those things are aligning you more and more with the creation vibration. So you might say, well, lots of people talk about manifesting. How do I create and manifest something? And you might say, well, how could be meditating helping me manifest something? Well, it's one of the greatest ways for manifestation, because you're dropping away all of those solidified belief systems, because you're allowing the mind to settle enough that you're dissolving into the empty space of nothingness. And when you merge with that, and the blocks are dissolved, then you can place the intent from that state of consciousness into that reservoir or vortex or spiral of energy to bring into your experience. So, to perhaps sum up what we're talking about, is if you begin with what is it that I am wanting in my reality that perhaps at this moment I am not experiencing. And then as you put it in a sentence, say because. So I am wanting to experience X and I am not experiencing X because. And then you'll start to identify the because and the belief that perhaps is there because it's too hard, or because I'm not good enough, or I'm not talented enough, or I can't do what I love, or relationships are painful, or I'm going to get hurt, or because nobody can fix my illness, or it's impossible, or because I can't get pregnant, or because I can't get married, or because the people always cheat on me, or because I don't have enough, or because the government is after me, or because there's a beings in a higher realm that are sucking my energy. You can make up anything you're wanting, right? It's a belief. And then once you identify that belief, start to look at, well, why was that put in place? Because it protects you from something. And once you figure out why you put it there, then we want you to honor it. We want you to bring gratitude to it and say thank you for being there. We know that you had a good intention, that you were put in place for a reason to protect me. And then what is the core that it's protecting you from? And when you get to that seedling of where that is, and start to trace it back to where it came from. And if you can find where it originated from, then ask and give it back where it came from, until it goes back all the way through the lineage to source itself. And then sit in meditation and drop into the empty space of nothing. And in the empty space of nothing, throw in the intention of the vibration you want to align with, that frequency. And it does not know, because it's just energy. It has no agenda. It is simply reflecting to you what you're telling it. It has no agenda. There's nothing out there in the big sky punishing you or telling you you can't have that or this or whatever. And so when you align with that intent in that empty space, then you can begin to expand into the surrendering of nothingness, where you can create anything.
Raphael, why have we chosen to have the limiting belief that we are all separate? How is that serving us and protecting us, and why should we be grateful for that?
Well, it is that you are given free will. And things got a little bit out of control. in that the idea was to be able to enjoy and to play with creation, in the idea of having something that to identify with. So if you're not separate, then you can't play with something other than self. But what happened was you spiraled so far down the spiral into density that you got so far, like in the rabbit hole of the game, in the free will of the choice to keep playing, that you forgot that you created the game to begin with. It's quite funny, really. So you created the game, but you have forgotten that you have. And what's happening right now is that you are remembering. That's why so many beings say you're waking up. You're in an awakening process because you're waking up to the remembering that you've created it to begin with. And how ridiculous is that? And so as you remember it, you begin to spiral, moving upward, moving up the vibrational frequency back to the origin of self, of who you are. And when you are there, then you can perceive from that bird's eye view or that zoomed out lens that everything you are looking at that you had identified as something other than you is actually you, just encased in another form, to have the comparison of the vibration of experiencing something other than self and to play with that energy back and forth. But you spiraled so far down in the forgetting that even when you're engaged with yourself, because everything is yourself, you begin to identify so much in the identity of who you think you are, closing in so much that you've even lost your capacity for creation itself, which you created to begin with. You created everything. Everything you can perceive and see was created by you because it is you, because you are the creator of everything. But that concept is hard for you to grasp in the singularity and the identity of self that identify with the idea of who you think you are, where the ego and the mind expanded to the point in which they became the driving force, and the heart, which is your operating system, became in the driver's seat behind you. And until the heart begins to take the reins of moving, where the mind becomes the servant and is simply there to be a tool for you to utilize in this process, then you may remain in the idea of separateness. And that is why moving into a state of awareness, where you observe and watch the thought until the thought begins to dissolve and you recognize that you are not the thought, but that you are the empty space behind the thought. You are the openness behind it, the awareness, watching it. Then you remember who you really are. And then when you remember who you really are, the game of not enough doesn't exist, because how can there not be enough of everything that is you created to begin with and is yourself? And so we could tell you over and over and over and over to go back into that place of presence in meditation where there is nothing, but you want to grab on. The mind, the intellect wants me to give you something more juicy than that to do, to figure out. But vibrationally along the way, as I descend into form to speak to you through Kelly as the angel Raphael, it is that I am simply a vibration that has not forgotten who it is that I am, nor am I identified in a body and haven't spun down the whole into the idea of separateness. I can see from the perspective of where it is that I am on the spiral of frequency that all of it is the same. But is it because you're so identified in wanting to receive information from the mind to be able to hold and contract it into something to figure out? We have to continuously give you something to start to very gently open up your perspective to the remembering of who you are. So if every day or on Thursday or Sunday or whatever it is that Kelly summons me to give this transmission to you, I just came on and said the answer to everything is love and meditation, you would get very bored with that. You would say, well, that's fine. They already told me that. Now what's next? Give me something else. But really, that's all it is. It is the dissolving of who it is that you think you are into the emptiness of nothing, merging with the vibration of love itself, that all things are born.
So I totally understand that. And I guess my question is we live in this world where there's so many external things, so many external influences that have been encased in the limiting beliefs that have narrowed their pinhole, and their pinhole so narrowed that it almost causes suffering for other people who might have their pinhole open. And so the question is, how do we help other people open up their lens from the perspective that we're in? Of course, we can meditate and love ourselves and dissolve that within ourselves, but is that enough for us to make a greater impact in the world when we live in a world where so much seems to be happening around us and there's so much suffering? And since we are one, there is a desire to do something about it.
Yes, it is that in continuing to do your work, whether it be in the meditation, in the love, in the sharing, and in a higher vibration, and doing the coursework in which I continue to provide for all of you over and over, you are accelerating your vibration and your frequency. And as you hold that frequency, and more and more of you do, those around you will instantly begin to elevate their own, because it starts to match, like tuning forks, right? They match each other. It's like teenagers, and one has their period and then the other one gets it. Because you start to attract the same vibration. You get on the same rhythm. So it's a collective leap. It's like what you call the monkey effect, right? There's so many that have to have that new frequency in the collective consciousness for it to take that leap. That's why doing all this work is so important, because as more and more are all doing it together, it starts to form a new frequency band, and that then those perhaps that were at another vibration or frequency will start to tap into it and merge with it. And then others perhaps that are choosing not to do so may start to not be in your experience. So you might say, well, I'm frustrated, I'm doing all this work and the people around me are not, and so it is difficult to have those friendships or relationships. Well, there's still something that is vibrating within your own frequency that is aligning enough with theirs that they're still in your experience in order for you to continue to open and to grow and to learn. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in your experience. They would fall away in one way or another. And that's what many of you see as well, that lots of relationships or friendships are dissolving and new ones are being born, because you're moving so quickly into new frequencies that you begin to vibrate and align with those that are more in alignment with who you are. But it's just like at the beginning, when this energy started to usher onto the planet, and that's what many of you call the way shower, right? Or the starseed or the light worker. You are the ones at the top of the spear. You are piercing the veil to open the pinhole wider and wider and wider for others to come through. And when you're the one piercing the veil, it might feel a little harder for you to do it. You're kind of doing the harder work. You're ahead of the curve, in a sense, where other beings may still be so based in 3D and in the identity of materialism, or that they need to buy lots of shoes or whatever it might be that's quite ridiculous, as an example. example. We don't want to harp on someone who likes shoes, but you know what we're saying. They're so based in the material and in the 3D of the ego and separation. But when you're piercing that hole and expanding it into that space, you're allowing more energies when they come up to it to move through into higher frequency. It's already easier to get through because the hole is bigger. It's more expanded because you've done the work. And so many of the healers on the planet and the what you would call the way showers, or whatever word you use, are the ones showing the way. They are piercing the veil into a higher consciousness to expand it for others then to match that frequency so that they can come through and ascend into a higher vibration. It's not that they're not doing the work, they're doing their part. It's all part of their agreement, but they're able to move through the doorway easier because it's wide. It's been widened for them.
And so if people are afraid that if they go all the way and let go of the people that are no longer vibrating at that frequency by healing it themselves, and those people fall away and they're afraid of being alone, so they hold onto that frequency within inside of themselves even though they know how to heal it, what do you say to somebody like that who's afraid to let go of somebody in their life that has been there the whole time because they don't want to, because they want to adjust their vibration, but that means losing somebody in their life?
Oh, it is a limiting belief that if you adjust your vibration to that higher frequency that you'll be alone. It doesn't mean that you're going to be alone. That's the limiting belief right there. You just said it, that they believe that if they raise their vibrational frequency to a place in which they are whole and healed, that they will lose their loved ones because they won't be in the same frequency. But perhaps if their willingness to lose it by really healing themselves, perhaps those that they think are not able to heal as well will. But they cannot be attached to the outcome, nor have the belief that they will be alone, because there's plenty of other beings that are vibrating at the frequency in which they're wanting to vibrate at. But they're clearly not vibrating at that frequency because they're still thinking that they're going to be alone, which is a limiting belief. That's very funny.
So as we move forward into this new world, there's a lot more uncertainty than ever. How do we become more comfortable with uncertainty?
It is the trusting of source, the trusting of the universe. Literally, lots of people might say, well, I trust that the universe has my back. And it is the trusting of that you're perfectly all right, no matter whatever it is that's happening in any given moment. In the presence of the now, all is well. It is that it is surrendering to the unfoldment of what is taking place. It's when the fear and the anxiety overrides it that you create the blockage in your doorway to the infinite possibility of whatever you're thinking you're wanting to intend to create. For creation can only come through with an expanded and open space, which means an open, surrendered heart to whatever is occurring, trusting in the divine, which is yourself, trusting in creation itself, that you are taken care of and that all is well. It is perhaps in an old-fashioned word, it is faith. It's the idea that when you have to figure it out and take control, that's where the limiting beliefs were born from to begin with, because that's ego saying that I'm not taken care of. When there was enough abundance for everyone, it was a conscious decision through the idea of free will that somehow there wasn't going to be enough. Well, who made that ridiculous decision? There's plenty. And so it is in the trusting that you are cared for, that there is enough, and the surrendering to and aligning with that vibration, that nothing actually can go wrong. Because even in what might be labeled as going wrong is perfect. And that might sound very annoying when people say, well, it's all divinely perfect. And you say, well, it's not really divinely perfect. A tornado came and my friend died and I'm in the hospital and I've lost all my money. But perhaps it is divinely perfect. So it is the willingness to really align with the perfection and the trust of what's coming through, that in that then the doorways open. And we're not saying you have to go through the dark night of the soul in order for you to expand into that vibration, but sometimes it is in the losing of everything that you actually drop into the nothingness, which is returning to who you are, because there is nothing left to hold on to. That's why many people go through such a dark period and are some of the most enlightened beings on the planet, because when you've completely surrendered to everything and you're not hanging on to the control of any of it, in the absolute complete faith and trust that it is, or that the universe provided and put it in your experience, that is forcing you to completely let go to the attachment of all that or anything that is, that you merge with yourself, which is everything, which is love.
Thank you, Raphael.
You're welcome. Is that all?
I am curious.
You're a curious one, aren't you?
I am curious, what would happen if everybody right now on the planet surrendered today and just did absolutely nothing? What would happen?
It's not about doing nothing. There's the difference between doing nothing and merging with the nothingness.
Clarify.
Yes, well, it is that you can take a period of time to let all of the vibration of the identity that encases you to dissolve, so that you merge into the nothingness. And that's a period of what you might perceive as doing nothing. But then you're still in form, right, as a being. And then with the intent of what you put in that pool of creation, you have to add movement to it so that it begins to move, to form, and to experience. Now, if everyone on the planet stopped and meditated and did nothing for a period of time, and expanded their awareness into the remembering of the infinite, of who they are, you would accelerate the vibration at a quantum leap, and the consciousness would begin to merge back into the remembering of love. But that doesn't mean that you would continue in that state. You would just then evolve into a new vibration where movement would be added to it to create something new.
Beautiful.
All right, then. The body I am using is getting tired, so we will say goodnight. We love you all very, very much, and are here for you. You are not alone. Do not ever feel that way, and know that we can only come and support you if you ask and call on us from the angelic realm. And we want you to know that you are divine and magnificent and beautiful and perfect as you are. And that as you expand into unconditional love and the remembering that you are all right in the presence of the now, in the infinite space of nothingness, possibilities of all things are completely and absolutely possible. Many blessings and good day.
Good day.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining tonight, Thursday night, on this beautiful full moon. And I will channel again for everybody on Sunday. So I look forward to seeing you there. I appreciate all of your generous donations. I really appreciate that energy exchange. And I really encourage you to do the Starseed class with Raphael and Casey and I. I'm so excited about it. So you can find that in the email I sent out with tonight's Zoom link is a place to register for the Starseed class. My new website I think will be up tomorrow, and you can look at it there. But in the meantime, it's in the email. All right, many blessings. Mwah. See you guys Sunday. Bye, everybody.